Hi, welcome back to my channel and my review for Mad Max Fury Road. So I'm just finishing up now my review series for all of the Mad Max movies. I've done all of the originals and I'm finishing with this before we get Furiosa coming out here on Friday. So this movie came out nearly 10 years ago now. It was George Miller returning to the franchise to direct again 30 years after he did Beyond Thunderdome. And the story here is it's really a standalone Mad Max film. It doesn't necessarily act as a sequel to the previous movies, even though it touches on the same themes and the same sort of characters. But it really is almost like a reboot or a remake of The Road Warrior. It's like a modern day Road Warrior, I feel like. And this was an interesting idea. I think he actually came up with the idea back in the 80s, but this movie just took years and years to actually get to come to fruition. So that's the setup we have here. Max has been recast now as Tom Hardy, given that Mel Gibson was getting way too old to play the role. And we're effectively following the story from his perspective, but it's really watching the journey of this character called Furiosa, who is played by Charlize Theron. And she's been stolen as a child. She works for this warlord and she's basically planning to make this escape across the wasteland to get back to her hometown. And Max gets roped into this journey with her and chaos and action ensues. So I actually really liked the new casting of Tom Hardy to play Mad Max. Just because I think with this character, you know, he doesn't get the most development. He doesn't get a lot of lines of dialogue. Very much a man of few words. And it's all about the presence that he kind of commands, the dynamic around other characters. And Tom Hardy, just like Mel Gibson, he really has that. You know, he's a great actor. He looks tough, but he's also very likeable as well. And you do definitely feel convinced by him. You buy into the fact of these other characters starting to trust him and seeing that he's this really troubled person. He's a lone wolf, just lives out in the wasteland. But you do get that sense of why they start to trust him and like him as the story progresses. And I think Tom Hardy was absolutely the right pick for the role. And the little bit of character development you do get for Max is really told in very, very short flashbacks where you see that he's been living alone in this wasteland and he hasn't been able to protect certain people, like whether it's people that have been close to him that he knew previously, that he's either let down, he's kind of haunted by these memories. And again, this will kind of is fleshed out a little bit better if you have seen the previous movies, because you know there are plots involving his family and also with the children that he meets in Thunderdome. So I think these little flashbacks, they provide a little bit of context to why he kind of chooses to live alone now and what kind of haunts him as a character. But I think having seen the previous three movies, it really helps to contextualise all of those flashbacks and how they kind of fit into his character. But I really think it's Charlize Theron that steals the show here. You know, she's the main character we follow. And she actually has quite an interesting story. A little bit more story development for a character than I think we've ever had before in the Mad Max franchise. And I love Charlize Theron. You know, she really commits to the role she's in. Everything from down to the acting, just to how she looks as well. Like here, she's got the shaved hair. She's got the soot over the forehead. She's got one arm with this kind of mechanical arm attached to her that she uses to operate the jig and stuff. It's just this, she really goes full out with this. She's really, you know, you really buy into her character and she's just amazing to watch. Loads of really powerful moments. And I love the dynamic between her and Tom Hardy as well. I think that's why the movie becomes so engaging, despite the fact that you don't get a lot of the backstory behind these characters or a lot of their development. You just get a few things about them and then you're just seeing how they react to the situations that are playing out. This really is nothing but a hardcore, non-stop, balls to the wall action movie. It's a 2-hour runtime with no chance to breathe in between. And if you're the sort of person that doesn't mind a fairly small and thin plot surrounded by non-stop action, I can imagine you've probably already seen this and loved this movie to death. And the action in this film is absolutely incredible. incredible. You know, it's so creative, and I think that's what makes the Mad Max movie so special. You know, George Miller's commitment to creating these very unique action set pieces involving vehicles and chases. You know, so much of it has been really well thought out, kind of, you know, how the cars are designed, number one, but how people get between them and how the action actually plays out between the cars, on top of them, everything like that. It is really impressive to watch. And like all of his Mad Max films, you know, they're mostly practical stunt work. You know, I think like the majority of this were real cars doing real stunts, people genuinely taking big risks to achieve these incredible sequences. And because this is, you know, a more modern movie, you can tell there has been some CGI that's used as well, just to kind of cover up the seams a little bit and help, you know, manage to do things that just weren't possible back, you know, in the late 70s and the early 80s. You know, you can definitely tell in those earlier movies that there were limitations in what they were able to do, so it can feel a little bit jarring at times, just because obviously they were trying to achieve these insane action sequences and doing it completely practically. So you can tell here he's managing to kind of utilise that new technology whilst also keeping it, you know, very realistic because of how much stunt work and choreography and design that's really gone into this. So it really does make for some heart-pumping action, and it is just staggering to watch. And I really do like how much fun they have with it as well. You know, it's very self-indulgent. You know, you've got all kinds of crazy stuff added in here where, you know, when you have these vehicle chases, the crew of people have like some kind of band that goes along with them. So you have this guitar player hanging by these strings, just bashing out riffs as they're going and shooting at people and fighting and everything. It's just crazy stuff like that. It's so over the top, but in the best way possible. And it just makes it so entertaining to watch. Now, whilst the action is amazing, there are still a few things about it that are not perfect, I don't think. And as I touched on already, in some ways I like the fact that it's, you know, doing a more modern version of Mad Max where it is being touched up with VFX work and whatnot. But I feel like there is just something I love about those originals that use purely practical. It's all stunts, it's all real. And because of how ambitious this is with the action, you can feel at times like it's maybe going a little bit too far. Like there's a particular sequence during a storm, some kind of sandstorm, and to me, when you're looking at that, even though it looks amazing, it is impressive, it doesn't look real. And I think that's where it starts to detract slightly for me. So whilst it is gorgeous to look at and it is very impressive, something about the old way of doing it, where it was just real cars on a sandy desert road driving and doing these stunts, to me there's something about that I think I actually prefer to what they've done here. And overall, I do really like this film. I enjoy it a lot, but I've never seen it as being, you know, one of the biggest and best action movies of all time like a lot of other people do. And I really did enjoy this when it came out, but it wasn't until I kind of got into the YouTube circle and, you know, keeping up with reviews and people's thoughts online that I actually realised how much love for this film there really is. People see this as like God tier action, and for me, even though the action's amazing, the story and the characters is not developed well enough for me to really put it up there with some of what I think are the best action films of all time. When I think of the best, I'm talking about stuff like Heat, Terminator 2, Aliens. Those for me are some of my favourites. I think they're kind of universally loved amongst most people as well. But for me, the best action movies have to have the whole package, and even though the action is a top tier, the characters and the story aren't. There aren't enough surprises. There's not enough development of why certain things are playing out. Like even with the character of Furiosa, you do get a lot more about her here than you got about characters in previous movies, but even that you're told through maybe a handful of lines of dialogue, and you do like the character, but that's about all you get from her. You don't really get an understanding of what she's been through. And I think that's where some of the impact is lost for me. So for at the end, for example, when she has that final line with Immortan Joe, I think that would hit harder if you really understood the full journey that she's been through with him. Whereas you don't really know much about it other than that he was this kind of ruthless leader that took her as a child. and has obviously kept her there working at this citadel for him, but it doesn't hit as hard because you just don't get enough building of the characters here to really feel the impact of that. That being said, I did actually enjoy it a lot more on this rewatch than when I saw it the first time in cinema. And it's funny actually, when I went to see it originally, I managed to persuade my really good friend Dan to come with me to see it, and he was never into sort of big action blockbuster type movies. But I persuaded him that we should go and see this, and it's one of those things, you know, when you go and see a movie and you can tell someone really isn't enjoying themselves, it kind of rubs off on you a little bit. And there's that, you know, that particular scene where you know, Furiosa and the girls, they're all riding out towards her homeland, and Max kind of brings this realisation to them that home's actually at the Citadel, and they actually need to turn back and go through all of that again, just going in the opposite direction. I could hear him sighing like, fuck me, they're going to go through doing all of this again. And I think just, I kind of like, it did kind of resonate a little bit in that moment where I was like, okay, the movie is a little bit one note, and I think that did rub off on me somewhat. So I wasn't entirely sure. I was kind of questioning whether I actually enjoyed it at the time that I saw it, but watching it fresh now and appreciating it for what it is, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more, and I do get why so many people love this. Overall, I do think this is an extremely well made, incredibly entertaining action film, and definitely one of the best movies in the Mad Max franchise. I'm really looking forward to Furiosa on Friday because I think the trailers for that look really great. So I'll be interested to see where that comes against this. I'm hoping it's going to be even better than Fury Road, but I will be doing a ranking as well of all of the Mad Max movies. So if you haven't seen this before, definitely recommend you see it. I'm imagining if you're watching this, most people who've ever seen a Mad Max film will most likely have seen this one, but I do encourage you to go back and check out the old movies as well, as I think seeing those beforehand provides a bit more context to the story and the characters to make this film, I think, a better overall experience. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 rating. So that's all of my thoughts for you guys on Mad Max Fury Road. Do let me know down in the comments whether you like Fury Road, and tell me what's your favourite Mad Max movie in the franchise. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content, and I'll see you next time.